Hey, it's Bob. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm about to go off on Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 5. So if you haven't seen it, just stop now and go watch something else. If you have seen it and you're pissed off, then welcome to my world. I feel hate for this episode. I know that the theme of this episode was hate. But yeah, I'm angry and I want to talk about why I hated this episode. So join me. A lot happened in this episode in a very short amount of time, and I feel like they do like those gotcha moments, but I feel like this was a gotcha episode and I really didn't appreciate it. Like, to a certain extent, I knew that Dany's a hothead, she's not really fit to rule or whatever, but she is still a conqueror, you know, and she still does have, I should say, have good qualities. And then I feel like in my head, I was kind of like, okay, if she had burned Varys maybe in episode 4, that was, again, a lot less eventful, just like episode 1 of this season, where I'm like, episodes 1 and episodes 4, I'm like, what were you guys doing knowing that this was going to happen? Like, you can't just throw this on our lap of, like, you know, like this terrible, like, creature that Daenerys became. Like, we needed a little bit more build up for this. Like, this isn't something like killing a dragon, you know, a sneak attack. Like, this is something that somebody became basically a sociopath in, for the viewer, what feels like a few minutes. Because when you think about it, in previous episodes of this season, Daenerys was still a hothead and was still making mistakes, but she still did virtuous things. Like, first of all, even coming to the north to begin with, which after seeing this, I'm like, why did you even come to the north? Like, what do you care about? Like, I don't understand. But still, like, she couldn't let the Dothraki, who were her people, you know, be killed by the White Walkers. So she jumped in early and kind of ruined the whole plan based on her intention of saving her people. So it just feels really weird that then she would kind of take such a drastic turn and then be like, oh yeah, no, I like them, but I don't like I don't care. Like, what? I don't understand. Like, I don't, you know, she's supposed to be the breaker of chains. She's supposed to have freed the slaves and all that stuff. Like, could your mental illness be so bad that you could snap like that? And even if that were the case, I felt like we needed more. Like, burning Varys and doing certain things and, like, not eating for a week, like, whatever, you know, she wasn't eating her food at Dragonstone. It's like, okay, that could be many things. Like, she was depressed or whatever. But then to go from that to then being this, like, super villain that literally basically destroyed civilization in one way or another, when it was completely unnecessary. I think that is kind of the rub with Daenerys' character, that it's like you kind of were pretty strategic even when you were in a very emotional state. Like, hello, when she lost her dragon, that two of her dragons that were supposed to be like her children, you're gonna tell me that that didn't make her snap as much as this episode? Like, obviously the Missandei thing was like really terrible and very difficult and all that stuff, I'm sure, Cersei being Cersei till the end. We'll get to her in a minute. And so it's like, I feel like there have been way much more triggering events for her if you're looking at it from like a mental illness perspective, which at the end of the day, these are still humans. You know, they may not be on this planet necessarily, but they're still breathing oxygen, biologically look, sound, and feel human, have a lot of human characteristics. I think that's one of the big parts of the show, even though it's fantasy and there's magic. This is still a human being. So it's like, I don't understand kind of where she goes from 0 to 1,000, you know, aside from the fact that maybe, I think it felt forced, maybe from like a TV perspective, where it was like, oh, we're going to make her evil. And this is how we're going to make her evil. But I just didn't feel like it was warranted. She basically tactically won the war or the battle relatively quickly. So it's like, if she had already done that, like, and shouldn't she have been more protective of Drogon, her last dragon? You know, I don't understand the mentality. And I know that obviously if you're in, you know, spitting mad and you obviously became a serial killer, which is what she became, you know, maybe there is kind of no mental stability to speak of. But nonetheless, I mean, it just felt inconsistent. Like, it's like, okay, and not to mention the fact that that whole character's arc, like, you can never watch that show from the beginning again. Like, I was watching the show, I've been watching older seasons as this season has progressed, because again, it's been so long since watching those episodes, and this is really the last time we're gonna see this show live, you know, as it airs. But now it's like going back, it's like when you watch The Sixth Sense and you're like, oh my god, he's a ghost, and then you want to go back and like watch every scene because it's like, oh my god, he's a ghost. It's like Bruce Willis, oh my god, let me go see like how they did that and how they tricked us. But this like trickery does not really motivate me to learn anything else about the show. Like, I do feel betrayed to a certain extent as a viewer. And I don't mean solely based on the fact that she became evil. I think that there's an argument that she had evil in her. With Targaryens, you flip a coin, blah, blah, blah. Jon Snow's the good one, she's the bad one. I didn't really like that either. Like, I thought this was a little bit more of a progressive platform. And then you see it become, I don't even want to go as far as to say misogynistic, because that's probably not fair, but it's not as nuanced as I thought. This feels very like 80s like fantasy film. I feel like the show regressed in this episode, and I feel like the Daenerys arc could have gone either way, and that's not even necessarily the whole reason for it going left. I just feel like the way that they did it, like in Spanish there's a saying, no es el hecho, es la manera. It's like, it's not what you did, it's how you did it. And I think that that's kind of my issue with Daenerys going evil and basically, you know, becoming a trash bag, for lack of a better word. And if I were that actress, I'd be so pissed. I could be like, really, I had to get naked like every episode for like 5 years, and all this was supposed to be building up to something, and I'm in the desert and I'm this and I'm that, and then I'm gonna go and do this? Like, wow. And I mean, one of my takeaways from this episode is that Drogon needs to die. I think it's really crazy how we were rooting for the dragons throughout the entire series, wanting them to be born, like, you know, wanting them to grow bigger, wanting them to become actual, you know, parts of the plot and the narrative and the tactical elements of the battles. And then now I'm like, I want that dragon dead. Like, that dragon is a weapon of mass destruction, like owned by a terrorist, Daenerys. And it's like, it's crazy how in the episode before they kill the other one, Rhaegal, who I already thought he was dead. So honestly, when they killed Rhaegal, I was like, oh my god, well, I didn't even really know he was alive. I thought the White Walkers kind of ate him. But then it's like, so I kind of wasn't really that shocked, but it's like the whole shocking thing in the last episode was that the scorpion got him, like the scorpion, those big arrows. And then in this episode, first of all, like, did Drogon go to like boot camp for like avoiding getting hit by these things? Because he got hit by like Bronn doing it on the ground, very little visibility. Then he got hit by Euron, who was literally hiding like in a cove with like 11 ships, and they had 11 chances, and they got Rhaegal like 3 times and like actual like death wounds, like. And then this time there's a bunch more ships and a bunch more scorpions, and this guy's like like dodging everyone. I'm like, time out, this makes no sense. And it's like, if they kill Drogon somewhat easily in the next episode, it's gonna be so annoying, because it's like, you guys can't keep on doing this. Like, are the people that work on one episode like not involved in the next episode? Like, I don't understand. And there is kind of like a point of comparison between Cersei blowing up the Sept, I think in season 6, and then Daenerys destroying the world, essentially. And I think the difference is that Cersei was evil since she was a child, which we've seen in flashbacks. Like, Cersei was a bad egg, no matter how you slice it, whether she kind of cries but is still a sociopath. She's been consistent in her inability to be a decent human being. And Jaime's huge flip-flopper, but then, so there's characters that have flip-flopped on that. But with Daenerys, it was crazy, because it's like, okay, she was so quickly corrupted by power that basically she really did win the battle already once she started destroying the King's Landing, because she had already won. None of the Scorpions were there. She could have just hung out, like outside, and left and protected Drogon from Dragonfire or anything else Cersei could have had up her sleeve. Like, she didn't even know what Cersei had up her sleeve. So, and then she's just killing a bunch of innocents and all that stuff. And I think that the difference is the corruption element. Like, again, like if I wanted to see people being corrupted by power, I would watch the news. Like, I don't need this fantasy show that is our escape from the everyday world to then put us in like a place of, somebody that you thought would be your hero or whatever is completely corrupted and consumed by power and is now committing genocide. Like, wow. Like, just wow. And I never thought I would say this about Jon Snow, but he actually has to redeem himself now, because it really was a lot of his errors, which were completely like unforced. Like, a lot of his errors brought this to fruition. Like, he made the same mistake, I think, similarly to Ned Stark in the first season, where you can't be so self-righteous that you become so rigid that you're blinded to reality. And I think that that's the issue with Jon Snow that he inherited from Ned Stark. That it's like, it's not even about saving your own skin necessarily. It's that sometimes doing the right thing is wrong in the moment, in a weird way. Because it's like, yeah, he pledged his loyalty and he bent the knee to Daenerys, and that's all fine and good. Again, huge mistake. They should have just gone into the North already married. They had plenty of time to have a secret ceremony, just like his parents did, and just come in there and be like, this is my wife. You have to respect her. Whatever. Like, there were so many political maneuvers they could have done even before the fight against the White Walkers to have kind of dissolved a lot of these plot points that I think obviously they wanted to make this season interesting, but I'm kind of against that too, because it's like, you don't kind of dumb down your characters or make characters do something they wouldn't normally do for the sake of plot or for the sake of narrative. You kind of have to, the whole point of something character driven is to be true to the characters. And I haven't read the books, but I'm sure the books are probably going to be different, and maybe obviously, making something for television has a lot of factors. I've seen a lot of content where they talk about, George R. R. Martin talks about Q scores and stuff like that when I was watching one of the synopses of this episode. And it's like, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of decisions that maybe even the producers and directors and everybody and the actors were like, oh my God, really? Like, do we have to do this? But it's like, I don't know. Maybe the network had a say. Maybe there's a reason, whatever. But I just feel like some of the decisions that the characters have made in season 8 kind of just not only undo a lot of what they did before, but just inconsistently with their decisions from before. And that's what kind of maybe bothers me a little bit about this episode. I don't deal well with inconsistencies. But Jon Snow needs to kill Drogon. Like, he needs to redeem himself in that way. That dragon needs to be dead for there to be any stability in the realm. At that point, really, you neutralize Daenerys, even though she does have armies. Like, again, like, you saw that she can't really fight on her own, so Aria could still sneak in and get her if we need her to. Or Jon Snow can even end her too, because it's like Daenerys has proved a bigger threat to the realm than even Cersei at this point. Because not only did she actually go around, like, Cersei at least contained her terrorism to, the Sept, whereas Daenerys was just very willy-nilly about innocent life, which that already you're not going to be a good ruler. So if this episode proves anything, it's that Sansa needs to be the ruler. She's the only one with any gumption. Like, I'm sure Sansa, when she gets, like, the newsletter or the Raven or whoever's going to tell her what went down, she's probably going to be like, oh my God, this girl's an idiot. Like, she probably doesn't have any food for any of her armies. Like, there's probably a bunch of stuff that, like, Daenerys is going to have to deal with that she has no idea, because, again, she made, like, a really stupid move with what she did. And it's like, those little things are the things that go into ruling. Well, first of all, why would you want to rule over a pile of rubble? I don't know. And do you really think, what is she going to do? Like, fly over to Highgarden when they don't listen to her on Drogon and burn down Highgarden? Like, she's not going to have anything left. It's very zero-sum. But I think that the misogynistic undertones of this episode, which I wouldn't necessarily project onto the entire series, but I just feel like this was like a really ugly, gross turn. I feel like it could actually be remedied by Sansa taking power. So I think that if they are setting up for Sansa to rule and then still having a woman ruling and being super effective and all of that stuff, sure. I mean, I guess maybe then they're going to get nuanced again in less 80s made-for-TV movie. But at this point, I don't know that that's necessarily going to be enough. Like, I love Sansa. I'm here for Sansa, Team Sansa and Aria, like, for the win. But again, I don't think it was enough to necessarily justify everything that happened this episode. So Aria, toward the end, like riding off in the white horse was kind of cheesy to me. It was a little bit Disney. Like I was like, where did this horse come from? They're both like exhausted and starving. So where is she gonna go? Like, how is she gonna support herself? I'm assuming she's not gonna stick around to see what happens. For Aria, I kind of have a pipe dream, which I don't know if it's possible given her powers with the many-faced god or whatever, to like, I want her to get like Jason Momoa or like Ser Jorah's face to like mess with Dany. Be like, I'm back from the dead. And then she's like, hiya! And then she like kills them. Like that would actually make me really happy. I think it's really messed up. Like that's like kind of like a fantasy of mine. But yeah, that would be really nice. To see her kind of like killed in a really like gnarly, like messed up way. That's kind of like what I'm hoping for. But one of the things about Aria, aside from the white horse and stuff like that and trying to save the little girl, what I really liked, this episode kind of ended Aria's kill list. And I think that that's kind of a beautiful moment where I feel like she like found a will to live that I think she had lost. Like Aria, I think, was lost and didn't really have as much of a will to live before during this series, and I feel like even after she had killed the Night King, like she was still going down and she was still gonna kill Cersei. She was still kind of the same Aria, where I think what happened now kind of really gave her a reason to stick around, a reason to actually assume the power of her name and again, possibly go north or possibly kill Daenerys, whatever the case may be. I think that this, in this episode, is actually where Aria found herself more so than even episode 3. Because we saw that in episode 4, when she rejects Gendry, that she's still kind of like a machine to a certain extent. And now I think that she was kind of snapped back into humanity. So Clegane was a little bit anticlimactic, I must say, only in the sense that the Red Keep was falling down. Like, they could have just sat there talking and they still both probably would have died. So it kind of like made me feel like, okay, I mean, whatever, sure, stab him in the face, stab him in the heart, like whatever, push him down into the fire. And I know you hate fire, and that was like very scary for you. But I am still glad that Sandor kind of had some resolution for himself, like an actual personal revolution. Not only kind of help snapping Arya into reality, but and then actually continuing his help of the Starks, but also him neutralizing the Mountain for the realm. So I think that the Hound actually had a role of spiritual importance that I think we saw glimpses of it when he goes to like that church and all that stuff earlier in the series and all that. I think we got hints of it, but I think to that extent, that was one of the things that like I didn't hate. Again, I thought it felt pointless. Like when the sky is falling, like what really matters how anybody dies. Speaking of Cersei, so I think probably one of the most disappointing things about this episode was Cersei's death. Like, she may as well have died in her sleep. Like, it's like, are you actually kidding me? That, like, Jaime, who should have been dead several times. Like, I don't even understand. The whole Euron fight was so extra. Like, I'm at a loss for words to a certain extent with Jaime's arc. I thought it was so stupid and pitiful. And then them freaking having the luxury of basically dying at home with the roof falling in on them, and they're in this like loving embrace. It's like, really? You guys are gonna do this to us after everything that those two have done? they're gonna get this like somewhat redemptive like death where it's like, so you know, they're like crying with each other and holding each other, and they came into this world together and they left this world together. Like, are you actually kidding me? Like, I think that if Cersei had like a crazy demise, this episode would have been easier to deal with. Like, the fact that Cersei salió con la suya, for lack of a better phrase, like got away with murder, a lot of murder. That's probably one of the things that I felt very wronged about in this episode. It's like, not only how do you give Lyanna Mormont, who I think was in a handful of episodes, this like epic death, killing a giant, almost going back as a zombie, like so much screen time, such like a crazy way to go. And then like Cersei's like scared like for 5 minutes. Like she's like, the mountain protect me. He's like, no girl, bye. And then she's like, ah, and then she runs, and then Jaime's there, like, who should be dead, because it's like, how does Euron, like, who like was clearly an Ironborn, who the Ironborn are way more savage than the Lannisters, and you're gonna tell me that he's gonna stab Jaime on the side, and Jaime, who already doesn't even have his good arm, is gonna beat him and then go find Cersei while all this is going on, and then they're gonna die together? Like, I'm so angry about that death that I think that's one of the most unforgivable things about this episode, maybe even aside from Daenerys. Because again, Daenerys, had certain things gone a certain way, I may not have felt like crazy about Daenerys becoming this evil monster. But the fact that Cersei like basically is like, you know, basically has like a baby bottle and a blankie for her death with her brother, like for moral support at home, like, you know, like basically dying like in hospice, like for evil, like totalitarian terrorists. It's like, no. Like, terrible death. I'm debating if I'm going to read the books now, because I'm kind of like, oh, what if the books like make me even feel worse about all these characters? But I feel like, I hope that's not how Cersei and Jaime die in the books, because it would just feel so like trite and like cheesy and like waste of time. And then now Tyrion betrayed Daenerys, so it's like he should be scared. I don't know if the Unsullied kind of put two and two together, because Jaime's already dead, hidden in the rubble, so maybe nobody finds out that he let Jaime escape and he can kind of trick Daenerys. I don't know what. But yeah, so I don't know what's going to happen with Tyrion. Again, I don't know the scope of the final episode. Like, is it going to be months? Is it going to, you know, what's the timeline for the next episode? I think that's going to determine kind of what happens with these characters. But Tyrion literally has no family left. He has nobody. But I would say Sansa. So my logical assumption is that he's going to end up with Sansa, and Sansa's going to end up with him in one way or another. I don't even think in terms of marriage. I think that's kind of cheesy. But, you know, in one way or another, I think the only person that he really has left is Sansa. And I think that, you know, in terms of other characters like Jon Snow, like, I don't know if he necessarily even really has anybody. I think that he's going to be so full of guilt after kind of facilitating genocide in King's Landing. I think that that's going to weigh heavily on him. But what I don't want to see in the next episode is freaking Jon Snow, like, trying to reason with Daenerys. Like, if he ever calls her my queen or anything like that, if Jon Snow does anything less than go in with a flaming sword and, like, decapitate Daenerys, like, I'm not going to be happy. Like, I'm just not going to be happy. And I would say probably for the first time in this series, like, I don't really care as much what happens in the end. And I think that that's crazy, given the fact that I've been watching the show probably for 10 years or however long it's been on. And it's like, you're like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? And now it's like, who cares? Like, honestly, who cares? Because there's really nothing left of where we started. And even though I feel like they've been trying to mirror the first season with this season. This last episode was a comedy of errors. Like it just made a lot of what would happen next feel inconsequential, aside from obviously killing Drogon and Daenerys. You know, now that's all that's really left to do. But then again, you don't really have King's Landing as it once was. You don't really have the Red Keep. Unless they're gonna do what they've been doing, which is like, then we go back to the Red Keep, and then suddenly like there's like people putting up bricks, and it looks kind of like not as it should look, which should be rubble. But yeah, Daenerys is ruling over rubble. She's evil. Like, she's killed the entire city. Like, she's ruling over, you know, ashes and smoke. She needs to be killed, but again, who cares? I don't know. The fact that I have so much apathy, maybe it's good in the sense that maybe they're setting us up to actually be surprised. I don't know. Maybe, I hope. Again, I don't even necessarily foresee any kind of future for Westeros, aside from maybe, again, each kingdom ruling themselves and staying out of each other's business, and hopefully Daenerys dying and Drogon dying. Bran. Bran, help us out here. Like, why is everybody sending ravens and plotting? Why aren't you in that little map telling them, okay, this is gonna happen, hold on. Okay, Danny's gonna go crazy, we have to stop. Like, why are you letting all this happen and doing nothing? Like, I can't deal with Bran. Why did we have to go all the way to the north? Why did we have to turn him into the three-eyed raven? Why did Hodor? Why? Like, what is Bran's purpose? That's maybe one of the only things that I need answered, and I'm afraid that they're not going to answer it sufficiently, and I feel like this show may go the way of The Sopranos, which I didn't watch, but I heard that people were very upset with that ending. Like, I'm afraid that I'm going to be very upset with the ending already based on this episode, and I'm hoping that's not the case, because again, I feel like episode 3 of the season was the best episode of television I've ever seen in my entire life, and then this basically ripped everything I thought about the show to shreds, and I feel betrayed, bewildered. Like, I'm not happy. I was spitting mad. All of my notes about this episode were curse words and how much I hate this show. And I hate it when people call into podcasts and all that stuff and like complain about the series. But this is the first time that I would be one of those angry callers. Like, if anybody liked this episode, like, we're not friends. Like, ill, gross, no, bye. And that's really all I have to say about this episode. So yeah, whatever. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. If you want to get notified when I post a new video, hit the bell. And thank you for watching.